keeping you up to date with the latest in Texas Tech sports. This is the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's happening? Welcome into Ask Level, episode number 11, the podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. We are on the other side of a road trip to Fort Worth. Red Raiders fall to TCU, number 7 team in the country that will move up this week. Level, first off, just open it up. Thoughts on what you saw in Fort Worth on Saturday?
Oh, frustrating. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole trip was frustrating.
Very true.
I didn't know how these kids would react after having to sit on a plane for 8 or 9 hours on Friday. You and I were a part of that. That is no fun. That is a hopeless feeling, and it's I know that there's everybody's pointing fingers and all that. That is a TSA. Weather on again, off again, move the trip up earlier, trying to adjust, and then airline and air traffic controllers kind of fighting over where you're allowed to go, when you're allowed to go, and all those things. But it equaled I think 11:45 ish, and sitting on the plane and not departing said aircraft until about a little after 9 o'clock there in, I guess it turned out to be Fort Worth, and then a bus ride over to Metroplex where the hotel was. So I wasn't sure what, a lot of times you see teams, okay, they can rally, they can fight through something like that, or they can use it as an excuse. I thought for the most part the Tech played well early on, and this is kind of the same theme. Unfortunately, they'll fight you and then just kind of not have enough to finish. Yep. And you were losing players left and right, against TCU, and that certainly did not help the cause, namely Baron Morton. And variety of receivers. You were without Trey Cleveland, and would lose Sparkman and Jerron Bradley in the game. And you just you have a hard time keeping up. You just don't have a lot of juice on offense, and we can debate the fourth down calls and some of the option plays and some of the different things that we saw. I'm sure they'd love to have some of those play calls over and do something different because they didn't work in some cases. But, Joey McGuire told me after the game, look, we saw something on film. We thought that was a way to get to the perimeter and just kind of, keep the chains moving and set ourselves up for the next play. But, just overall, just frustration. I'm just you hate losing, and it's not a lot of fun, and there's only 3 games left now, and you need to win at least 2 of them if you want to play a 13th game. That's the reality of it. But you're kind of settling in as back end Big 12 team this year. I mean, you're 2-4 in the league, and that's that's where you're at. So I just sure wish you could just finally figure out a way to keep a quarterback healthy.
Yeah. Level
rinse and repeat, man.
I'm going to change it up a little bit from normal. I'm going to ask a few questions up front from the audience based off of yesterday's game, because we'll move on and talk some basketball in a little bit, because Texas Tech opens the week or the season this week. So someone wants to know what exactly happened on the third down field goal thing watching on TV. That was a big confusion yesterday. So there were actually a couple of questions on that.
Well, I guess come to find out, the TV folks, graphics and all those kind of screwed it up. The officials initially screwed up in the stadium, but they got it fixed. I think they kind of award. And you could explain that just as well as I can. Did you kick the field goal on third down or fourth down? You kicked it on fourth down.
Right.
According to the referees right there that are monitoring everything, and they didn't do a great job yesterday in many ways, but that's everybody. It was everybody's understanding on the field that was fourth down, and so I don't know, other than some TV graphics or some folks laying the chain down too early and assuming something and all that stuff. But yeah, that it was 100% understanding of mine that you kicked field goal on fourth down the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just caused a lot of confusion that they gave a first down after picking up 9 yards
Nine
instead of
yards.
10.
Well, shocker. Yeah,
Yeah,
shocker.
I had some
Yeah.
frustrating, and you could hear frustration in Coach McGuire's voice post game. He never came out and pointed directly at that, but there were definitely some big plays within this game. A phantom face mask call, PIs didn't exist except for one play. Yeah, it was a frustrating game on that front. Going to more questions. Someone asked, "Do you think TCU plays dirty?" I think this goes towards the number of quarterbacks that get knocked out. There was a play, which I didn't personally consider dirty. It was a bang bang play where Bradley got knocked out of the game, but he did end up getting a targeting call. So,
Yeah, and that's a bang bang play. I mean, you have the personal foul on sportsmanlike conduct at the very end of the game with the Navy transfer acting, not the
yeah,
right way. I don't, I've had some people ask me, was the hit on Barron dirty? Did they twist his ankle on purpose? Did they? I can't speak to that. I don't know if I'm a full disclosure. I don't really care for TCU. I think, but they say a lot of things, and so I find it funny. So, but I think that somebody went out of their way to be dirty and do something intentionally. I can't say that. If I felt that way, I would tell you. But I don't have any. And I guess in a weird way, you call it lucky that they've been able to knock out that many quarterbacks. I don't think it's anything that it's just kind of just dumb luck. Do I think TCU is great? No, but I'd love to not be great and be 9-0 too. I mean,
no kidding,
that's you just win and you don't apologize for it. I think they'll have a hard time getting through the Texas and Baylor games the next 2 weeks on the road unscathed. And they're going to have to go undefeated to get to the playoff based on what we're seeing. But that's I've exhausted my thoughts on that subject there.
Yeah, I don't know if Sonny Dykes just hung out with leprechauns in the off season or what, but man, they
well, and like Sonny told me before the game yesterday, he's like, man, I've been coaching since 1997. This is the very first year that I've ever had my starting quarterback for the year miss a start, and it just so happens that's this year for them, and Max Duggan ends up being a Heisman Trophy candidate. I mean, just so again, dumb luck there, but somebody's living right in Fort Worth, I guess.
A couple more questions on the football front. Someone says, Level, what's your take on the TCU athletics director and their shade thrown towards Texas Tech?
Oh, I mean, I mean, they're trying to draw you off sides. I think in some ways, this is kind of the Tech fan base was so braggadocious about some of the things that the ticket buying and just getting all Twitter fired up on Twitter and everything like that. But I just am a big believer in karma, and if I was the TCU athletic director, I'd just shut up and not hit send on something like that. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, cool, man. You had a bunch of empty seats instead of Tech fans in there. Yeah,
right.
good for you, bud. I mean, and I saw him down there in his before the game in his loafers and his pocket square and everything like that. And I don't know. That's not how I would roll
Sure.
as an AD. I just kind of leave well enough alone. Look, you don't have to, trying to be cool, man. Let's run it back. Yeah, dog. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Nathan asks, offense has been super inconsistent all season. Is that due to OC, revolving door at quarterback, or bad offensive line?
Well, I get people are frustrated with Zach and just the offense in general. But I mean, are people not watching? This is what it blows my mind. I don't know what you see, and you're seeing very average offense. But look, I mean, we said this before the season. This was where all the inexperience was. There's not a lot of proven playmakers. Really, there's not one proven playmaker. Now that I say that. You don't have any team speed, and I think that in some ways you've adapted. But yeah, I mean, how the lack of quarterback continuity. I mean, now that we look back on it, when Barron went down, against TCU, you really didn't have a chance.
You know,
And you were missing two starters on your offensive line. You were losing some receivers. Look, and people can get mad at Joey or Zach or Coach Hamby or whoever you want to point fingers at, but there's going to have to be some patience here. This was a 500 team last year. You're trying to grow this thing. Right now, the only person that you, I think, expect to lose off your offense on the entire side of the ball for the most part is Roderick Thompson. And, they'll all be back, some of which maybe won't be back. Maybe that's your choice. Maybe that's their choice. I don't know. But it's just right now it's hard because you're not good at any one thing. And I don't know. But that is a combination of, trying to protect a not very good offensive line. That's trying to protect either compromised or inexperienced quarterback play, or just the constant rotation there. You don't have a proven playmaker at wideout. We thought Miles Price would be that. Really, since he's come back from his injury, he's kind of been a non-factor. And I think Taj Brooks and Roderick Thompson are really good players, but they're not. They can't take over a game. They can't go score. Points for you, and they are tough. They're good college players. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but there's just a lot of issues on that offensive side of the ball. And if you want to have issue with play calling and coaching and all that, have at it, man. That's your prerogative. But I just hope everybody understands the totality of all the different things, because that offensive line will look a lot different next year. They're going to try to fix it. They know it's an issue. I think you have a decommitment on Friday from a receiver that in some weird way could end up being a great thing, because I think it may open up a spot for you to go find somebody in the portal that's an older, more experienced guy. That Texas Tech has had some success on finding some of those guys in recent years. I think you need to absolutely use that spot. But you'll see them go find a center. You'll see them go find an offensive tackle and potentially a receiver via the portal. And I think the idea of trying to find a center is because Dennis Wilburn is probably best suited to play guard. And you would have Dennis Wilburn and Cole Spencer as your starting guards next year if you can go kind of find what you're looking for. But look, they're not happy with Caleb Rogers at times. They've tried to. It's been a turnstile at right tackle. I think they're desperately wishing that Monroe Mills comes back soon.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, like which wideout would start for some of these other teams on your team? I mean, tell me. I'm all ears, and I'm not trying to take a shot at anybody. I'm just saying it's collectively it's a bit of a mess. Yeah, I mean, I think that, and they're trying each week to try to figure out what is best.
Okay, Level. So 2 more questions, and then we'll move on to KU and basketball. Not KU basketball, but KU this week and basketball. This one from Tate says, why are we running Shuck so much?
They're just going to run the QBs, man. That's just what I think. It's trying to get it on the perimeter and trying to keep the defense honest and trying to protect the offensive line a bit. You do put your quarterback in harm's way when these things happen. You ran Barron too, even though he's not wasn't 100%. Then you run Donovan too. I just think that's what they're going to do. I don't think they feel like that any of these guys is a drop back and can survey the field, because the offensive line is just not going to give you that enough time to win that way. And you don't, again, I go back, it's a combination of things. Like, do you have any receivers that can get any separation? So I do think you're trying to keep squeeze some yards, short the distance for what you're trying to get done on the next play and all those things. But again, when it doesn't work, it looks ugly. I get it, and it's frustrating. But again, who do you, if you need to convert a third or fourth down, who's the go-to? And then I would also ask, like, what's the bread and butter for this offense? Like, if you were in charge, what would your, like, who would you go to?
I got a lot of answers of what I want it to be, but none that have been
that you would
consistent.
feel comfortable with. Yeah, that's part of the problem. So Anyway, but again, people don't want to hear patience. I get it. I don't want to hear that either, just because this is my alma mater as well, and I hate losing. I mean, trust me.
Yep.
When I'm sitting on the sideline watching it slip away from you in Fort Worth, Texas, I mean that's rock bottom for me, man. I mean that's and all the hypnotoad crap and all the
my gosh,
all the shots being fired at you on social media by former coaches at you, and just and the athletic director. I mean, on and on it goes. So yeah, it was a lot of fun this past weekend in Fort Worth, man.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Level, but I know I picked up on that. I don't know about you, but I want TCU to lose every game the rest of the way out, and they play the Longhorns too, which is saying something.
I have no problem rooting for Texas this weekend. In fact, that's exactly what I will be doing. I don't, take my fan card away. I don't really care what you that's my preference. So yeah, hey, if my team can't win it, I hope that their season gets wrecked.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, I'm not waving some Big 12 banner. I really don't care.
No, that fire has got plenty of fuel now, and who knows, maybe a good thing for a rivalry in the future. All right, last question on this game. Peter asks or says, stubbornness on fourth down is costing the team wins. It took them out of the game yesterday. Am I alone in thinking this?
Well, I mean, again, this is picking and choosing, because you beat Texas because of this same philosophy. I mean, flat out, you beat University of Texas because of this same philosophy and its success in doing so. I don't think that necessarily cost you the game yesterday. Did you? But because again, my issue is if you have like an identity or a way of doing things, as long as you stick with it, I don't have any problem with it. And it's worked some. Agreed. And it hasn't worked some. I mean, so
it's actually worked more than it hasn't if you look at the numbers. So
yeah, you can't pick and choose on when you want to be this way or not be this way. That's not how it works. I think, and again, part of the fourth down opportunities is because you're not great on offense. And so you're trying to give yourself a bit of an advantage by having the defense try to stop you for 4 downs and not 3. And yeah, I mean, and Joey doesn't care about the margin of loss or margin of victory or anything like that. It doesn't matter if you lose 40-0 or 41-40. He's trying to win, and that's the way they're going to roll. I mean, and I don't see them changing or now again, it changes based on the score and time left and point on the field, and there's all these things that factor into it, but they all know those things, and that's the way that they're choosing to go about it. I have no issue with it, and it didn't work some late in the game versus TCU. I get it, and that looks frustrating, and Gus Johnson can yell about the punter and needing to kick it all he wants, but so I just I mean, again, it's as if people have not been watching the team this season. This is what they do. They've told you week in and week out.
Don't shy away from it.
And there's a variety of reasons why they do this, some of which we've discussed here.
Yep. So, and I honestly, I have not broken down the numbers myself, but I'm pretty sure at worst you were -7 in points yesterday from fourth down, which would be one of your lesser days. But on the season, you're still up.
Yeah, and we can, and Choice, we can. I think if we want to take it further, I think that what I have called some different things on fourth downs, maybe Zach
probably, yeah.
And guess what? Because they didn't work, and so those are always maybe some things you would like to switch up or have back. But the decision to ultimately go for it, I don't have a problem with, just because they've told you that this is what they're doing, and and again, it's won you a huge game, your best game. Your best win anyway, and I don't think it ultimately cost you yesterday.
No,
against
I think it stretched out the margin is what it did yesterday. But it's one more for you this year than it's lost for you. So I'm with you. You can't really sit there and put the blame on fourth down. And you have had coaches like that in the past, Mr. Tommy Tuberville, that would wave the white flag towards the end of the game to try to make the score closer instead of still attempting to win. So I kind of like the approach of still trying to get it all the way till the end. All right, Level, towards Kansas this week. They just knock off Oklahoma State. I hobbled Oklahoma State, but did it convincingly. So this game, that everybody has circled, or not circled, but just a check mark for a win on the schedule before the year. We knew that wouldn't be this way, but it got maybe even scarier heading into this week.
Yeah, and obviously Oklahoma State had no Spencer Sanders,
Mm-hmm.
and Oklahoma State, kind of the wheels have kind of come off there a bit. 2 trips to the state of Kansas did not go well for the Pokes, and they're kind of out of the conference race and all those things. And I think Kansas was tired of losing as well. Had lost 3 straight and finally figured out a way to win one. And Jalen Daniels is still been out, and I don't think he played. I mean, Jason Bean was playing. I don't think Jalen Daniels played against Oklahoma State, but Jason Bean, the backup quarterback that's spent some time at North Texas, going to be one of the fastest guys on the field. They will run him, and that's assuming that he's still in there, and they don't bring back Jalen Daniels, who was in uniform on the sideline. I did see that, but Devin Neal, the running back, really good. This is going to be very similar to like playing Kansas State in some ways. I don't think they're as good as Kansas State. I don't think they're as deep as Kansas State, but it's going to be, they're not going to try to trick you a ton on offense. They're going to be a lot of run game, a lot of, a semi-limited possession type game. But if Texas Tech, in my opinion, if they want any chance to go to a bowl game, this is just a game they've got to win. You've got to win it, a game at home, and bounce back and snap a 2-game losing streak here and kind of get a good taste in your mouth before you go to Ames, Iowa. But this is not going to be easy. Lance Leipold does a great job. He's a really good coach. Their year, into his tenure a bit. And so they've kind of seen some of the patience pay off a little bit for some of the things that they've been working on and working toward. And I don't know, maybe they won't be as crisp because they're already bowl eligible, which was a huge record, because now they're just playing but that's just me wondering kind of the mindset, but I doubt that will be the case. But they've already achieved that goal, and you're still searching for it. So it's weird to see a 6-3 Kansas team coming into Lubbock to play a 4-5 Texas Tech team. That's it's a bit tough.
It is very strange, but I think that this is a matchup. I think you stated as simple as it is. If you're going to go to a bowl game, this has to be one of your wins. You've got to have that this week. And
sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And I thought your defense against TCU, I was very impressed with that effort for the most part. It's just if there's any criticism again to lob up there, it's just that they're not quite good enough to get you a takeaway in a key spot or score you some points and all that, because we said this last week, it just needs to be that way for you. That's the way your team is kind of built, and this is where all your age and experience is. And boy, they played some good football. They were in the backfield a lot. Max Duggan never really got comfortable until late in the game. I just thought you kind of ran out of gas there, but I just, if there's any, and you're being nitpicky when you say it, but if you could just you got to create a turnover, got to get to the quarterback, and the face mask thing that I'm not one to blame an official or harp on it or whatever, but that changed the entire game. And
17-13 lead for Tech at that point.
Yeah. And I don't know if you go on to win it, if that is, waved off. But that's just bad, man. You got to be better at you got to be better at your job than that. And they're going to come back and they're going to tell Texas Tech, "Hey, sorry, man, we blew it." But that doesn't, just like I'm sure that they did last week about the pass interference and Rayshad Williams in the end zone. But you've got to, having said that, you've got to be good enough to fight through some of that stuff. And when you get dealt a rough blow, and you're just not there yet, that's just not who you are as a program just yet. So anyway, but that's unfortunate, and it's I'd say a lot of other things, but it's just, and again, in basketball, there's reputation calls. Even in the Big 12, there's reputation calls about certain guys get away with a little bit more than others and things like that, even at the college ranks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyree Wilson, not that that was some sort of reputation call, but it's dude, guy makes a phenomenal play, and he doesn't grab anybody's face mask, man. No. And it's just, and you call 15 yards, you negate an unbelievable play by him that doesn't even show up in the stats.
Would have been a 3rd and 14.
Yes. And it's just, very frustrating. But again, this is what people say when they've lost a game. They point to
sure.
certain things, and
Sure.
the losers limp.
Yeah, no, you nitpick everything, but also, like you said, they do have to be better in those moments. There's a third down play when Miles Price got tackled, and it looked like he caught the ball behind his back. No pass interference call. These are huge moments in tight games, and it felt like, again, what losers say, but it felt like Tech got no calls that went their direction.
Well, and you can go Mark Mangino if you want on this deal, and I mean we know what this is about. I mean, you know, one drive, and they give him a first down on 3 different penalties, and one of those, which is the Tyree Wilson deal, and so again, but I don't know if you would get the benefit of the doubt if you were in their same situation or not. I don't know, but I mean, that's what the eyes have. That's what the eyes tell me, and so I mean, that's my opinion on it, and I just I think that was I don't know. You have to laugh to keep from crying on some of that stuff, but whatever.
Last football question before we move on to basketball or thought or whatever level. Do we see an open quarterback competition, assuming Barron's out, and we have no idea right now, but if Barron is out, does this open up to Shuck and Donovan where either get it, or is this just Shuck's job?
I don't think you'll see Barron next week. I don't know for sure. That seems doubtful to me.
He was in a boot.
Yeah, that seems doubtful to me. I wouldn't just totally rule that out, but that's not what I would I would guess. And Tyler, he's told you what he looks rusty. He looks like he doesn't have the same zip with his throws and arm strength and all that. And he says this after the game. Hey, look, my mind is right. I'm engaged. My body hadn't caught up to that yet. And that's what, he just looks a little bit slower, a little bit like not as much zip on the football and all that. And it's not his fault. He's been out for 2 months, and that's part of it. But that's why I think you see them with shorter intermediate throws, that there's not a lot there, or just having him throw it up because he doesn't have to like zip it or because the throw against Baylor was just that's just he's not ready to do that, in my opinion, yet. That's what I see. And he may disagree with that. Coach Kitley may disagree with that, but that's just what I see. It just doesn't look like there's – and then with Donovan, I think that there's some concern about just the turnovers that he gets you into. And so I don't know if they want to really turn him loose and let him just throw it everywhere and all that. But, I mean, I'm guessing that they'll let Tyler start this next week. I don't know that for sure, but you're going to see Donovan some too. I just it's not pretty, and maybe you get some offensive linemen back and some of those receivers back, and you can kind of find a rhythm. I will tell you this. I would love to see a little bit more of Cameron Valdez, because I think he's got some different juice. The problem with Cameron is he's a young player. He hasn't figured out pass protection yet. And so he's got to learn to be a complete running back before he can be an every down guy. Right. And I think, when you see him now, it's like, okay, you're going to run the ball, going to hand it to him and all those things. But I think that if he can figure out pass protection, I'd love to see more of him, because he's got some different juice that you desperately need.
No doubt. All right, moving towards basketball. Season tips off this week. We've got Maui in a couple of weeks. This is a team, like many teams level, that has looked very different from the previous one. We've kind of gotten used to that in Lubbock, where turnover is normal, but that's not been a bad thing necessarily for Tech. We've seen some very successful years here in recent past. So what do you anticipate we see this year? Obviously, you have one of your big new guys on the shelf to start the season up until Big 12 play, according to Mark Adams. But this seems like a group that's pretty talented, playing in a very talented Big 12.
Yeah, well, the league is going to be a monster, but we've got a long ways to go, thankfully, before you get to that point, because this is going to be a work in progress. I hope people – you should have high expectations. I just hope that people are realistic, because there's only 3 returners technically, and only one of those really played a ton, and Kevin O'Banner. Sure. Daniel Baccio is going to play a lot more, and he was just a spot minutes type player last year. And then KJ Allen just didn't play much at all, but that's it. Those are the only 3 guys that played for you last year that are back. and you're going to be a lot younger, Choice. So
Yep.
you're not near as big as you were last year. You were really long and all over the place last year, and you're not built that way this year. You're a lot more guard oriented this year. I think you'll be able to shoot it a lot better, which could bail you out on some nights. Some nights that will be kind of what you major in, but Pop can shoot it. Talking about Pop Isaacs, the true freshman, Davion Harmon can shoot it. You'll love watching him play. He's a bulldog of a point guard or combo guard, however you want to phrase it. I think Jalen Tyson is the most talented player on your team. However, he could come down and turn it over 4 straight times, or he could come down and get you 4 buckets. And so, getting him to play smart is going to be the biggest thing, because you're going to see flashes and go, oh my goodness, because he can really get to wherever he wants to on the floor. He's extremely athletic and talented. He just gets a bit wild and out of sorts at times. And I think that'll be Coach Adams's and Steve Green's and Al Pinkins's and Corey Williams' like biggest challenge with Jalen. But this trip to Maui in a few weeks is no joke. Creighton, who they play first, is one of the top teams in the country.
Yep.
They have one of the best starting fives in the country. And so you desperately need to figure some things out between now and then, because that Maui trip is going to be a harsh reality check for a lot of teams there, because it is, I mean, I'm telling you, you're going to see some serious competition, and you feel a bit compromised because you're missing one of your prized acquisitions, if you will, in Fardaws Amac. And so that just sucks, but they'll get up and down. I think they'll be a little bit more aggressive on offense. And like I said, they'll be able to shoot it a lot better, and that can mask a lot of deficiencies. But Coach Adams he's on record as saying, man, we've scrimmaged twice. The defense hasn't really been our problem. It's just playing together and not turning the ball over and all that. So if the defense will come along fine, everything else will too. But there's going to be nights when guys, they miss a couple, they get subbed out, and then do they get frustrated? Because some of these guys, these shooters, quote unquote shooters, they're used to being able to volume shoot and put up a third and a fourth attempt to see if they can kind of get going. And I don't know, with so many options, it'll be interesting to see kind of how Mark handles that.
So you mentioned maybe a step back defensively in terms of length, that sort of thing.
Well, the bar last year,
exactly,
was about as high. I mean, they were a juggernaut. I mean, they were as impressive of a defensive team. So it's just impossible to expect that with a bunch of young kids.
I think we forget, we collectively kind of forget, if you don't run into Duke last year in the Sweet 16, there's a decent chance you could get to the Final Four, at least to the Elite Eight the next round. You ran into, at that time, the toughest team to play in the tournament, and that was a really talented team. So the expectations are still high for this year, but I think you're right. You have to be realistic. I think, to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong on the statement, you're hoping to gain as much offensively with this new group as you may be losing a little bit defensively. If you can be that much better offensively, it can kind of even out.
Well, yeah, I just again, if you, in those terms, it's going to be really hard, just because you were the poster child for, like, man, when you see Mark Adams's team, they are going to lock you up, and like it's going to be an uncomfortable night and all that. And I don't know if you're going to be this, because the opposite of that last year was this Duke team that had like elite offense, elite one-on-one play, elite, the number 1 overall pick and all that. I don't know if I would expect, hope that you could be like some elite offensive team, but I think a little bit more balanced, I think. And it's going to look a bit different this year, because you're going to try to, I think, get up and down a little bit. You're going to be smaller, and those kinds of things. And again, you're going to have some players that kind of surprise us, and some players that kind of don't play as well as you'd hoped. But you have to remember, Bryson Williams goes down, in my opinion, is kind of a legend around here, and I saw it day in and day out. But he wasn't Bryson Williams really until early January. That's when that switch kind of flipped and he really settled in. Yeah. So November and December were kind of a hit and miss scenario. So remember that as you get going with this year's team, because patience, and again, it's the same word we talked about earlier. People don't want to hear that. But and not losing your home games will help put you in a really good spot too.
With so many newcomers, who is your projected, not Big 12 newcomer of the year, but Texas Tech newcomer of the year? Who's the one you think will stand out the most out of all of these guys, or who needs to?
Well, it's probably either Harmon or Tyson, and I think because Davion Harmon, he's been in this league before. He's a dog, man. He's very outspoken. He's kind of an alpha. He really, I think he's picked up the defense and has embraced it quicker than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He can get to the, he's a 36% 3-point shooter from last year, but he can also get to the basket too. But I think he understands. It's been a while since you've had a pure point guard around here, Choice, and I think he can. Well, I would probably label him as a combo guard because he can play off the ball as well. He's just somebody that really understands where to get his teammates the ball and all that. And he's going to help a guy like Pop Isaacs a ton too, because it's allow Pop to play off the ball some. But Pop is an elite level passer. But I would probably point to you and say Harmon. That's the safest answer I can give you right now. With Jalen Tyson's got tons of upside. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be but I feel like I know what I'm getting right now in Davion Harmon.
True. All right, Level. Looking forward to basketball season. Hopefully we can talk about a win over KU next week and have a happy one of these.
And some wins over, let's see here, Northwestern State and
that's right.
Texas Southern.
Texas Southern on Thursday.
So we'll hope for a 3-0 week because there's
yes, sir.
Yeah, the next time we do one of these, there'll be a basketball game early that week, and then it's off to Maui.
Off to Maui. So
that's right.
Yeah. All right, Level. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Keep hope alive, people.
For Chris Level, I'm Choice Woodman. You've been tuned into the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3. Y'all have a great week.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3. For more from Lubbock Sports Station, go to doublet973.com.